Let's start off by intertwining your fingers together and doing wrist circles. Now I like to call these Vanderleys because there's an MMA fighter named Vanderlei Silva who always enters the octagon like this. Let's do about 5 to 10 reps each. You can do this quickly or slowly depending on how you feel. Now let's bring your fingers together and do more wrist circles, sort of forming like dumpling shapes. Now I'm not too picky on the reps. If I'm a little stiffer, I'll do more. If I'm not as stiff, I'll do a little less. And the time of day plays a huge part of that. Let's do brush strokes here. So imagine a wall right in front of you and you're going to scrape the wall with your fingers and then come down. These are especially good if you have tight finger extensors. So opening up your hand like this, for example, MMA fighters, grapplers, rock climbers, weightlifters, anyone who does something that involves a lot of grip by closing your fist will most likely have tight forearms and weak finger extensors, which is the top of your forearm. 5 to 10 reps. You can feel free to do a little more or a little less. All right, so for the actual stretching part, I like to work on little digits first. So starting with your thumb and just pulse in and out of here. 5 to 10 reps, doesn't have to be too crazy. Use quickly or slowly. And then play around with each finger as well. I like to go side to side, up and down, just to really get a stretch in those fingers and open up your hands. Now, if you check this out, I can't close my middle finger on this one because I pulled a pulley, I believe, self-diagnosed. So what I like to do is I like to crunch into the floor and press down on it. It doesn't hurt me, I just for some reason can't close it. And so I've added this into my wrist and finger mobility. Just trying to get nice little stretches. It personally feels good. And if you have a similar issue from gripping really hard, it might feel good for you too. All right, let's turn your fingers out to the side. You're going to lean to the side here. The further you lean, the bigger the stretch. Splay your fingers out nice and wide as well. And for these next few stretches, they're pretty much going to be very similar. You're going to rock side to side or forward and backward, and then you're going to do circles. Same thing, 5 to 10 in each direction. I try to keep this routine around 5 minutes because I don't want to spend all my time on it, and I don't do this every day. I usually do this every other day or whenever I'm stiff. So now let's do the same thing, pointing your hands in different directions. So you can move side to side or forward and backward here. I like going forward and backward. 5 to 10 reps. And then once you feel good, let's do circles. Now this is a sort of a variation of pretty much every wrist mobility routine that I've done, and it looks much more closer to the G&B wrist mobility routine from their Elements program, with some slight variations more specific to me. So now let's turn your fingers forward, and same thing, rock back and forth. The closer your hands are to your knees, the more you can lean forward. The further away, the less tense. And then let's move in circles. When I was a wrestler in college, I did some grappling classes after college. I was a gymnast from the ages of 5 to 10, so I'm used to several different wrist mobility routines. The one at GMB Fitness was in their Elements program. It's fantastic, works really well for me. I just added and changed a few things so I can hit my sticky spots. And that's what I recommend for you guys as well, is take this routine and change it slightly so you're working on your specific strengths and limitations. So now let's turn your palms upward. Now this is the opposite. The closer your hands are to your knees, the less intense. The further, the more intense. Now, turn the wrist or turn the elbows outward so they're not bending at the knee or at the elbows. But if you have to, you have to. It's totally fine. And then let's move side to side. Now, some people might feel this awkward, so it's okay to bend the elbows or modify. If you need to skip this because it hurts, you can just kind of do it this way, standing. I like the pressure on my wrists, so play around with it and see what feels good for you. All right, so now let's turn your fingers all the way in. Now, don't force this. If it doesn't feel good, limit it to maybe sideways, not all the way in. And then little circles. So I like this one specifically because it also tackles the back of my shoulder as well as my wrists and forearms. Just opens up a little bit more. So I like to end it off with these bad boys here. I like to connect my wrists, or my fists, not my wrists, and trying to keep the knuckles down and the fingers from opening. You're going to try to extend without opening up your hands. Now, if you guys are doing hand balancing or planche work, handstands, things like that, you might want to load the wrist slightly. So here's a little bonus that I really like. This is called the floating tabletop. Again, this is in the GMB Elements program, where you're just going to lift your knees slightly and protract your scapulas. This is like a plank 2.0, and then you're going to lean as far forward as you can, like in the planche, and this just loads up the wrists a little bit. Now you don't have to go that far, but if you're going to do like a planche training, this is a great way to load up the wrists slightly before your workout. And that's all I got. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.